3, 2, 1. Ready, Evie?
I'm ready.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being patient. We had a few things to work out here back at the old homestead. Very happy to be here with you again. It is Chris and Evie.
Hey, everybody.
And we are here today with y'all on a Sunday. So
It's our casual day.
it is.
A little bit more casual. Not
It
as
is.
much data either.
It is. Casual day. So good to be here with everybody today. Good to see you again. And we're going to be doing usual stuff. We got, we're going to talk today about those leaked documents. It's just what they tell us, not going into any of the super details, but sort of at a high level, what do they tell us? And second, we got to talk about this AI thing, Evie.
I know.
It's
going to be an interesting dive.
It's been alarming. Wouldn't be. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's been changing so fast, and there's so many massive developments popping out of it so quickly that we got to talk about it. So
absolutely,
those would be the subject areas for today. So hey, good to see everybody here. We got San Diego showing up. We see everybody. Yeah, sounds is good. Echo on his microphone. Let me know if you still hear that. Chris has echo. Other people saying echo.
Oh, no.
Well,
how do you want me to see?
I don't know what the echo means, so we'll see if it echo, but we can deal with it.
Is it one person or is it many
no,
people?
Several.
Oh crap.
Several.
Yeah, mad echo,
you
brother.
Sound under the influence of AI.
Perfect.
Right, well,
maybe Ryan can help us with
maybe
that.
Ryan can help us with that. So let me just go here real quick and see if there's anything funny going on this. I don't think so. I got the gate. I got a little compressor as per normal. I don't have anything else going on. The only thing is there a chance that the OBS has did we leave an audio setting turned on in OBS? No echo to some people hear it. Slight reverb. Okay.
More like reverb, not echo.
More like reverb. So if there's an audio setting in here somewhere, that's possible. But they don't hear it for Evie. That's funny because we're both feeding through the same system.
So I mean, it's got to be in the dynamics. The equal or the. You guys have different dynamics applied.
We do.
Maybe you should. Can you reset yours or something?
We do. So I'm just trying to see what the difference might be here. I mean, that's just the compressor threshold.
These buttons are scaring me. There's so many buttons.
Let me just pull this down a little bit.
Well, it's wonderful to be here with everybody. I'll just talk while Chris is messing with that. And we had sorry, I'm shifting around here. I actually had several back surgeries and a fusion in my spine, so it's a little painful to sit. So if you see me squirming around in the seat, I'm just trying to get comfortable. But we enjoyed reading through the comments, and that's something that we're doing in preparation for these weekly gatherings with everyone. And so if there are things you'd like us to know or things you want to comment about, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, and we will be selecting some to share with the wider audience as well. So
great. All right. Well, can I get started?
Carry on.
Should we carry on? So I want to start here. I want to start with these war documents, these things that got released. There was a 21-year-old Air National Guardman, as they say, a Jack Teixeira, that somehow managed to get these documents out into the world. And so, of course, the whole media is focusing on what a giant breach to national security this is and all of that. And it is a little bit of a breach, but I got to question what we mean when we say national security. It's invoked a lot, but I don't get the sense that people are actually, what does that mean, do you think?
A breach to national security.
Yeah, what is national security? Like when you hear that, they say, "Oh, it's one of those things you would say, of course, we have to protect national security."
I mean, I'm guessing it has something to do with defending our nation, making sure that we're sovereign in our borders and boundaries, and but
Oh, you mean like the southern border?
yeah, ideally. I mean, that's what I think it should mean. What does it mean to you?
Well,
I mean, obviously, that's a very simple answer. There are lots of other pieces you could add to that. But.
yeah. So, well, here's the thing. I don't share so it's one of those words they throw out all the time, and you're just supposed to accept it. Like, of course, anything that harms national security is an immediate. You have to put a no on that. But it's gotten conflated, commingled, conjoined, unfortunately, I think, with anything that's embarrassing to the government.
Right.
The government not being embarrassed is a matter of national security, apparently.
Right. It's kind of like disinformation. Like it's become
So if we could tease it apart, I don't care about that. That stuff that makes people embarrassed because they screwed up, because they made a bad decision, because it's embarrassing, right?
Yep.
I don't care about that stuff. That's not national security to me. It's okay for the government to be embarrassed, and it should be more embarrassed, held to account, and sometimes even thrown in jail for some of the things people do.
Mhm.
Okay? So if we can tease that out. Now, national security is something that would harm the interests of the country, particularly over the long term. That's how I would define national security. So I might say, for instance, the fact that it was 7 years ago that our country crated up the last tool set that could have been used to make locomotives, and that we no longer manufacture train locomotives in this country.
Mm-hmm.
That was an issue of national security to me. Like, that would have been something where if we had a functioning government that actually cared about national security, they would have said, we can't have that. We can't lose all the talent. Because it's not like you just one day you wake up, we're at war with China, we're like, oh, I guess we have to make our own locomotives. You just call some people up on monster.com and they come start making locomotives.
Right. And tomorrow it's done.
It turns out that casting an 18-ton, 12-cylinder engine out of steel into a block that you can machine takes an apprentice who apprenticed with a master journey.
Skill?
It's
really?
skill. It's generational
Those people
skill.
are skilled?
There is some skill
They're
involved.
smart? What?
There is. So,
no, I'm with you. It's kind of like Germany, too, if you think about it. Like Germany closing its last nuclear plant.
I know. It's the dumbest thing
ever.
Right?
That is not... That's to me, that seems like it's putting their national security in jeopardy.
Well, it is. So you can imagine, right? Probably in a few years, Germany's going to go, oh, shoot, we need nuclear plants. Again, call up monster.com, post some things, right?
Right.
And get yourself some nuclear plant operators again. No, once they don't just lose the 3 plants, they are now going to lose all of the skills to go with that.
Right. The people that know how to do.
The average age of a farmer in the United States right now is like 67 or something, 65, right?
Yes.
So we're going to lose a whole, like, we're not having people following on. And why would you? Why would you follow on as a farmer in this day and age, knowing that if there's, if a box of cornflakes is $5 or whatever it is now, 7, I don't even know what they cost, right?
Yeah.
Lots. If that is the $7, but the farmer who grew the corn is still getting the same, there's still like 7 cents worth of corn in that $7 box. They're still getting the same 7 cents they've always gotten, which is nothing. And they have to live on these perilously thin margins. And it's a high labor, crappy job. But that's the system we live in that says, the producers, the people who actually produce this stuff, we're going to give them the least cut of this. All the middlemen, the financial people, they get the lion's share.
Yeah.
Of anything that gets up.
It's very unfair the way it's set up.
And you do that long enough, and guess what? People rightly say, I don't want to work as a farmer, and they don't. But we're graying out on same thing.
Foresters?
The federal so the Federal Reserve in its infinite wisdom, foresters. Same problem. You're in Western Mass, where our 2 foresters in this region are aging out, and they have nobody following in their footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing, this is really going to bite us. The Federal Reserve, in its infinite lack of wisdom, decided, we're just going to make yields 0. And so people did this yield chasing stuff, and a lot of hot money flowed into the shale space in the U.S., shale oil. And next thing you knew, oil collapsed in price in 2015. And as a consequence of that, oil prices were so low, not because they should have been low, but because the Federal Reserve had created a condition where too much money had flowed into the oil space.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't care that it was so much money got destroyed. Hundreds of billions went into the shale space, never to be seen again. It became holes in the ground that will never pay themselves back. And so that's a done deal. While that was happening, the derivative effect of that was that the offshore rigs, which need $110 barrel oil to even begin to get out of bed and go do stuff, they shut down. And they shut down long enough that I talk to people in that biz and they say, it's all grayed out. I mean, the experience left. And nobody apparently is going into college and coming out as the next generation of petroleum engineers and et cetera, right? So there's a lot of derivative effects. That's what happens when you monkey around with stuff. So the Fed's that's what they did. All right, so with that as backdrop, can we talk about these war documents real quick? And I'm not going to go into them too deep. They look like this, right? They look like this. This is a document up here, it's clear it's a picture. Somebody took out a phone. It's been folded up. So I don't know how they got this document out of the controlled room. So
what's in the background? Can you see that?
Yeah, a little something. There was some stuff there. I mean, you could possibly source, it's a cover of some sort of
like a brochure
or something. I mean, that could help source it. But anyway, they got the guy. So this kind of a document, though, if you're on the system that this would come out of, apparently you have to sign into a room. Right. And there's all kinds. You have to leave any electronic gear at the front. You're swept, right? You go into this room. It's in a Faraday cage. You can then access the information. But if you printed it out, that would be monitored and controlled, right?
Right.
And so the idea that somebody went into a room, printed this out, I guess, folded it up apparently from the creases, and then managed to wander with that out of this highly secure environment says, okay, we should start there. We should maybe tighten up our procedures here. And so you know what the government did as a consequence of that?
What?
They decided we're going to have to regulate the internet better.
Really? But what I heard honestly was that there are so many people who have classified access across the different sort of what am I trying to say? You know what I'm talking about?
Like different branches?
The different branches.
Yeah.
There's so many people that actually have access to this that we could start by reining that in a little bit. Like not everybody needs to be read in on everything. Correct?
Correct. And I'm a little bit surprised that that a 21-year-old Air National Guard person had access to this level of information. Because you see on the top right up there, it says secret, no foreign. That's for no foreign nationals are supposed to see this, right? So,
oopsie.
So, yeah, oops. And there was some stuff that came out that was pretty embarrassing, not on this document, but what does this document tell us right away? So just at a high level, here's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a joint staff briefing, daily update, and there's all sorts of different boxes on here. And these boxes show that how many ships are involved. This is just U.S. assets deployed and involved in Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 17 ships. We've got trainings going on for all sorts of different things. And other countries are doing trainings. There's logistics. There's personnel in theater. That's what this middle map is. Shows
meaning we have boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground. Advisors, remember? But that's what we had in Vietnam.
Oh,
advisors,
God.
The advisor thing.
So they're just walking us into this.
Yes, they are. And on and on and on, right? So in logistics, all that stuff. And there's lots of things you could parse through and analyze in here that say, wow, well, the logistics doesn't look good for that spring offensive. There's things you can glean from it, but let's leave that aside. Just back out, look at this, and the whole idea that we are supporting Ukraine and we're sending a few, we're sending them some armaments and that's it. No.
A little more serious of a relationship than that?
Yes, we are up to our eyeballs. This is called being at war. That's what I take from this. We're at war, right? Flat out. Exactly. That's what war looks like. Yeah. It's all of those elements being brought to bear all at once. And so this is a lot more than was declared or talked about. Remember, it was just last week. Joe Manchin goes to Ukraine to meet with Zelensky because that's the fun thing, right? Everybody they all want to
so painful
shake Zelensky's hand, and he goes there with who's this guy? Brad
Paisley.
Brad Paisley, right?
The country singer.
Yeah, the country singer.
Yep.
Very painful. Very painful.
Are you going to make us watch that?
No.
Okay.
No, but Brad was trying to sing "Country Roads Take Us Home," and Joe Manchin's over his shoulder singing really loud and really off key. And
did that offend you?
Well,
you're offended.
Well, yes.
As a musician,
it's really hard to keep a tune when somebody's off your shoulder, like belting it out wrong.
I know it's true.
And Manchin was just completely oblivious, no clue that he was messing the song up, even though, did you see Brad Paisley shot him the side eye? And then finally he's like halfway through
Not even
the first bar.
Yeah.
And he
The
just
first verse.
looks over and says, Joe, you're too loud. We're all done here. And he leaves, right? It was pretty bad.
Typical musician. I'm a musician. I feel like I can bash on him.
Well, I just didn't think that represented America super well
Mm,
in that
no.
moment.
No, correct.
Anyhow, if you look back at this whole thing. So I see that World War III has happened. And the reason I brought up that Joe Manchin quote is because Joe went over there and he said, it's, this is one of the most important wars that America has ever been in. Like, flat up.
What?
Mm-hmm. I've been tracking this pretty closely. I don't remember when Congress declared war.
Yeah, I don't remember Congress
remember that?
declaring war either.
No, they didn't.
Mm-mm.
They didn't. That we could be here with this level of involvement without a declaration of war. Because this isn't just like, we're going to beat up on Somalia or something like that, or whatever. Because the United States has been doing that a long time. Grenada, Panama, Libya, on and on and on. But there was no declaration. This is full on. Like, how does this not go through appropriations? Every one of those boxes, you can just watch $1 million meter spinning, in real time.
How does that not go through appropriations?
How do we have no oversight or voting as Americans? How do we have no say in this?
That is our money.
That is our money.
That's our money.
Yeah, it's tax season. I got to pay my taxes on Monday, just like everybody. And it's so good to know that my excessive tax rates will be burped out by this thing in about 9 seconds.
Exactly. Go up in flames and explode.
Well, look. Here's another one. This is just the allied and partner combat power build.
Ooh.
And it's all like what's happening day by day and across all these different units and months and all this stuff. So that's the level of logistics we're involved in. It's just, it's just huge. And by the way, this little box down here is too hard to read, but this little orange box down there ostensibly shows total assessed losses in Ukraine and Russia in terms of personnel and equipment. And the thing is that, what's astonishing to me about that box, Evie?
What?
Is how wrong it is. It's completely wrong.
The numbers are just
the numbers
way
are
off.
complete BS. And so to me, that's an issue when our own top level briefings are full of crap. Like they're just flat out wrong. Because those fit the narrative. So that's our whole country right now. Everything has to fit a narrative. And if the reality of it, like, I guess, I don't know. I mean, back in Vietnam, they had all these body counts that were also notoriously padded and inflated.
Were they inflated?
Yeah, they lost a lot. We lost fewer and all that stuff. So it's just, that's an old part of the military game.
Yeah.
It really is. But that's what I take from that. So that's what I wanted to pull from all of that is.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm curious if you think this was leaked on purpose.
That I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Do you think it's part of a larger narrative that they want us to be knowing about?
It is a little suspicious how the leak came out. Again, I'm surprised that he was able to get all these different documents out. And this is just the stuff that people have already seen. Apparently there were like 150 others. And
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
And some of it was very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. Because it went to sources and methods. And that is like once you understood what was written on one of them, apparently showed that the United States has a tap on Viktor Orban, the president of Hungary's phone, right? Which shouldn't surprise us because remember just a couple of years ago, Angela Merkel found out that her phone was tapped by the U.S., right? the Chancellor of Germany, right? Her phone was tapped.
Because we love you. We just want to know what you're saying.
So it is.
I hate that. I'm a privacy nut. I mean, I'm sure they don't enjoy that either, but anyway.
Yeah. So Vince says, good point, Evie. So I think that's about, were these leaked on purpose? I don't know. So I'm a little suspicious because I was watching how the spin. So it's not always the thing that happens, but it's how the talking points are very suddenly coalesced around by the media, right? Which we now know are entirely just propaganda arms. And They're just there to sell a set of lies and a set of positions. So I was watching, I think it was CBS, could have been NBC, I forget, doesn't matter, all the same. But they said, oh, well, this 21-year-old Jack Teixeira is he's apparently a gun fanatic and, you know, seen saying racist things. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. A gun fanatic in the U.S. military?
Really?
Really?
That's an odd label.
Wow, can't have that. Actually, I kind of want the gun nuts in the U.S. military. Call me crazy, but that should be something that you should carry as a...
It's kind of weird.
Anyway, but they're trying to. It was odd because of how they characterized him, you know.
Yeah.
And
That is a lot.
so the whole thing just doesn't smell quite right. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about on those documents is just when you back it out, it's like we're already at war. We're already at war with a nuclear superpower and we're up to our eyeballs in it. And maybe we should have a conversation about that. And it's not okay to me that the only conversations we're having is a parade of A-list celebrities and congressmen and senators going over wanting to shake Zelensky's hand like they're meeting the Pope or something like that. It's just unseemly. And we need to have a very serious conversation first, I think. Like, is this in our national security interests to be conducting this war with our blood and treasure at this time against this particular adversary?
Right.
Right?
Given what we know about energy and our future, you know, it just seems like it should be something that as a nation we're actually addressing head on and not sort of sidling into it.
Wait, we have an important departure here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think Natalie Medford says, what is Evie making?
Oh, Natasha, I think.
Oh, Natasha. Yes, sorry.
Hi, Natasha. Oh, I'm, it's very exciting. I'm knitting a dish towel. I like having my hands busy and I find it kind of cathartic. In fact, I am a better listener when my hands are doing something. So some people find that to be true, and I am one of them. Thank you. I'm starting to get back into knitting because my grandmother taught me when I was probably 8 or 9, and I'm just picking it up again and enjoying it a lot. Making things for people I love. You're never going to get a sweater, though.
It's distracting that Chris isn't using the mic in front of him. What? What are you talking about? This one?
I don't know.
I am using the mic in front of me, I think.
Do you think it? Anyway.
All right. So, have you discussed Auto GPT? No, we haven't, but we're going to get there in just a second. So, first, before we get there, so we've been talking about a lot of this stuff that's going on, and there was a huge thing that happened when we discussed what Russia's use of what's called Kinzhal missile, which is rush dagger in Russian, but it's a hypersonic missile, total game changer. We've been discussing that a lot back at Peak Prosperity. So this is the testimony we get from a subscriber, and we have to speculate about these things, but I think this stuff is really actually super important to know about at this point in time, and that there are big changes that I can't do anything about except knowing about them. My belief is the entire geopolitical landscape has just been reoriented. That alone is a massive, huge, gigantic game changer for the petrodollar, for resources, for oil going forward, for the dollar itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are the kinds of things that I am busy analyzing literally on a daily basis back at Peak Prosperity, which we just redid the entire website over, which
I know. I think a lot of people are very excited about it. I am personally.
Why are you excited?
It's a lot faster. It feels like it's organized. It's just it's easier to search things and find what you're intending to find.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a lot more
user-friendly.
user
A lot of effort into all of that. Yeah. And so the reason I invest so heavily in the website right now is because I have this. So let me back up. In 2006, I started giving a series of presentations. It was in church basements. It was
I went to one of those.
Yeah, they were bad at first. They were horrible. I
Nah,
can't
I didn't.
like
I only fell asleep 3 times.
it would take me like 3 days of 8 hours a day, just charts. I'm going crazy, right? I'm just trying to explain all this stuff to people. And then ultimately over time, because this is how you know when you finally mastered something. I took what was legit 16 hours of presented material and got it crushed down into 3 hours called the crash course. And then ultimately that's now just 50 minutes. And I'm pretty sure I could do it in 15 if that's all the time you gave me. And so that's how you master something. You're able to simplify. So that was the crash course, and I was obsessed. I had to get that out, and it was the right message at the right time. And I'm very happy that came out. So if you haven't seen the crash course, it's a video series. It's also a book, which I just redid. It's Wall Street Journal bestseller. Yay!
No, it'll blow.
And it does change people's minds and the way they see the world. So
It changed mine. I know that. For everybody that's read it, I've heard, of course, a lot of wonderful support, but it when you put on, Chris calls it the energy goggles, you look at things through the lens of how much energy it takes to produce anything.
anything.
You realize how dependent we are on, fuel, on petroleum resources. And that's, not a bad thing per se, but we do have to understand where we are in relation to what reserves we have so that we know how to go forward.
Yes, and of course, China is very, very, very busily working to secure their access to the oil that does remain, which is in the Middle East. So that's why. So the crash course. Anyway, I was obsessed. I had to do this thing, right? If it wasn't created today, I wouldn't have that same obsession because it's already sort of becoming obvious that that's where we're at. I think more people need to be alerted to it. I think not enough people have that framing, so we'll continue to talk about it. And that's why I spent time rewriting the book last summer, which was a big effort.
Mm-hmm.
So with that out of the way, I have that same level of urgency today to help people find other people. I have this belief that however you want to look at it, whether you think about this in terms of good versus evil, left versus right, older versus young, whatever your framing is around this dichotomy, there are people out there who seem unable to conduct critical thinking and map it to reality in a way that I find useful. That's a very soft way of saying. I think some of these people are not, like, they're just insane. Like, they have a worldview that I think is damaging and limiting and harmful to the extent that we're deluded, like the military deluding itself over what the actual casualty figures are. Like, you shouldn't do that. Like, there's just, if it's uncomfortable or it makes you, it's not the story you want, you still need it, So there's a group of people that have gathered around Peak Prosperity and other places increasingly, which say, wow, I'd rather be around people who can think critically, be challenged in their thoughts, look at what's coming with as much of a clear-eyed presentation as they can. And so that's our job at Peak Prosperity. We've created this new place where groups can get together, people can find each other. We have locator maps because I'm as passionate today as I was in 2008 to connect people. We find each other in the virtual world so that we can find each other in the real world, because we are going to need to team up. This is platoon time, buddy system. Like, going forward, this next 10 years is going to be extraordinarily disruptive. Now, I might be wrong, but I'm not confused. That's just how I see it. And that's because I understand really where we are in the energy story. Oh my God, what an incredible story there that we all need to understand. And that translates out into everything, right? So, and that's why explains why Evie and I are talking to you from our studio on our little farmette in Western Massachusetts, because we believe in having gardens and cows and chickens and not pigs this year because our freezers are still full from last year.
Yeah, I love them.
Grapevines, filbert bushes, maple trees, water. We're back to the basics. Time to make sure if you need to know where and how the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is getting filled out for you.
Well, it's interesting because for some people, I guess, if you look at the history of the world, we've sort of evolved to this place of higher thinking and academia and all that. And I think that's important. And there's something really integral about the connection of self to the land, to the food you're growing. It does something different to me when I'm out there working so hard for those things. I have a deeper appreciation for them, but I feel like they nourish me in a different way. And so it feels like even though we're going back to things that are maybe are more primitive, you know, according to like what our grandparents might think. Like, you want to go back to this life? You're crazy. But I think in the future it's going to be marrying the head and the heart more, you know, than we have in this past couple of decades at least, where we're consciously doing things that are good for our health and good for our planet and our communities. We're not getting lost in the pursuit of financial gain and forgetting the rest of it, you know?
I like that. Emmeline says, learning to grow forage is my main focus, and maybe knitting.
Yeah. Knitting's great.
Yeah. All right.
By the way, your mic, some people have said that you sound like a robot, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but can you just try like making sure this is all plugged in?
I'm a little worried because I go into that camera and it started making some sort of heat noise. I'm worried that there's something wrong with that.
Oh. We're all gonna blow up.
Yeah.
If we cut out in a fiery flash, come and save us.
All right. Well,
is that Chris's wife or girlfriend?
Yes. Yes.
I'm his fiance. We haven't had our ceremony yet.
Right.
We're working on it.
We will. This is my wife in every possible way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So now let's so there's something I wanted to play here real quick. So there was a meeting, and this is one of these things where they bring in some US official and there's a group of reporters there, and it's just classic, like, they say nothing, it's meaningless claptrap, and people are just supposed to scribe it down, right? So this is a room full of reporters.
Okay.
And this woman finally just has had enough. And then a second gentleman finally has had enough. And I've titled this "Courage is Contagious" because I'm going to bet you that there's a lot of silent people in the room this time, but next time, there's going to be a couple people standing up. So
who are they speaking to?
It's some woman who's, I forget, ex-CIA something. But anyway, she just gives like this, we're, blah, blah, blah. We support democracy. New rule: if you're going to export something, you need to have it in the first place. Okay.
Good one.
Right. This whole idea that the U.S. exports democracy, I'm like, dude, we can't even tell if our elections are verifiable, right? Like 90%, when 90% of Americans don't want something and it still happens because some corporations want it to happen. Newsflash, that's not democracy. It's something else, right? So this whole idea, we support democracy around the world, is like, no, we don't, because we don't have it. If we had it, you'd have a stronger point to make. But
I wish we could be honest with ourselves about that. That would be nice.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at this. I'm going to mute us so I can play this out. Hopefully this comes through okay.
Do you have any idea how stupid we look to the rest of the world? We have Julian Assange in prison for 4 years, and we're here talking about journalism. Ukraine is doing everything you're accusing Russia of doing. They've banned the Russian language. They have outlawed political parties. One of the things, no, we should talk about this because we're about to be perhaps in a nuclear war. The U.S. is going fascist. I don't know if you've read this Resist Act. We have Assange in prison. We invaded Iraq 20 years ago and killed 1 million people based on lies. And no one cares about that. They should be here to hear me because they're here to tell a bunch of lies. I should be on the program. The United States is in deep trouble. We have nothing to offer the world. China and Russia are bringing peace. They chilled out the situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The war in Yemen is ending. No, you don't have any idea how stupid you look to the world. How stupid everyone here in their pomposity.
I'm sorry.
We're going to run around talking about democracy.
We won't be able to discuss that.
That's
Can
good.
you keep it for the part for the discussion?
I
Because
don't think I will be allowed to ask questions
you will
here.
be allowed to ask a question.
I would like to
Just
ask
at the
about
moment,
how we can say what we say
We can do
about
that,
Russia
but
when
at the time
Julian
for Q&A
Assange is
session,
sitting in
please.
prison. No one cares about this.
It's okay that you ask questions, but it's okay to ask it at the time of the event when we have it.
Hey, where's Seymour Hersh? Shouldn't Seymour Hersh be here? I mean, why we got this CIA acid Vivian Goldman wannabe here instead of Seymour Hersh? Here's a question. Did we blow up the Nord Stream or not? Did we blow up the Nord Stream or not? It's a simple question, yes or no? I'm just asking a question because everybody wishes they knew something different. What about Russiagate? He was completely wrong about Russiagate. I mean, let's just be for real. You were wrong. Everybody was wrong about Russiagate, okay? Robert Mueller took away the case. Think about that for a second. Now, all of you are wrong. Nobody here has even said a word about us blowing up Nord Stream. And now what? You have a State Department official talking about banning all Russian media from around the world. I mean, where's the outrage against that? Or Julian Assange? No, I'm not going to be quiet. Because frankly, no, I'm not. You got to take me away. Because I'm here to expose the truth about you. You're a CIA asset who said nothing about Seymour Hersh, the biggest story of this century, and nobody said anything. Instead, you're all here, what, masturbating at how great journalists you are. Nothing revolutionary has come from any of your articles. What's wrong? Why won't you take the question? You stood up to Putin, right? You won't answer about Seymour Hersh? What's going on? I thought he was an amazing journalist. Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, sir. Please, can you please?
Nothing revolutionary here. Just a bunch of old talking heads, outdated.
Do you have any idea?
Wow.
Wow, huh? Wow, that was like a never-ending stream of truth bombs, and plus 11 to that guy for getting that all out without a single He just laid it out there, you know? So yes, but you know what caught me was just look at all these people just sitting here, and you have to wonder how many of them are just like, well, first, most of them are just hacks, right? They're just there to be stenographers and, you know, bravely write down whatever this CIA plant woman is telling us, which is the latest set of lies, right? And these people are dropping truth bombs. So this woman, great question. Like, the United States conducted an illegal act against Iraq, right? We went in and invaded because of these weapons of mass destruction that turned out not to be there. Killed 1 million Iraqis. Just like, you know, but now we're morally outraged over Russia's actions in Ukraine, which is a much more complicated situation that stretches back to 2014. And you have to understand what happened with the Minsk agreements and the OSCE observers who were noting all the attacks that were happening across the so-called, you know, demilitarized line. There was a lot going on. 14,000 people were killed by Eastern Ukrainians in Western Ukraine, right? 14,000. From shellings, and they would shell like people's, like they would shell their markets. They would shell them when they, you know, they would have spotters that would see when people would line up
churches.
at churches. Like, yeah, they were just like basic, yeah, just doing what they do, right? So eventually that provocation became too much, and Russia came in to try and stabilize the situation, which we would do if that same situation was happening in Canada, right? You know, we'd help out. I get whatever. So with that said, so dropping all those truth bombs, but what I wonder how many of those people who just sat there mutely, like how many of them would join in next time? You know?
Good question.
How many of those people would actually say, you know what, you're right? And so there's a lot of truth bombs being dropped there. So anyway, that's how it's done. This is the way. What those two people did. I didn't feel they were hyperbolic. They were bringing the facts. They were stating them. You know, they weren't attacking with them. They were asking the questions. It's like, why aren't we talking about Nord Stream? Like, who did that? That was the largest act of international economic sabotage of our lifetimes. And somehow we're not supposed to talk about that. Like, oops, you know, just felt like doing it. At any rate,
You know what's interesting too is that, they let her speak. I mean, people were speaking over her, but the security didn't come and try to haul her out.
mm-hmm.
But for him, they were like, nope.
Yeah, and just that weak little just stop, sir, blah blah blah, just trying to sort of like contain the situation. But you know what didn't happen there? The thing that should have happened, which is, if I was moderating that, I would have said, hold on, okay, you got a lot of questions there. Let's take one of them. You know what? Because this is all right. It's in the room. Maybe we should talk about this, right? You manage a situation like that by actually leaning into it and going there, not trying to shut it down. And you just look weak. They ended up looking weak and stupid for trying to just box those questions out when they're actually legit questions. They're legit.
They definitely are.
Who blew up the Nord Stream? It's a decent question to be asking. So here's the thing. So I wanted to put that out there because this really caught me a lot. And so I want to talk about this, which is Ambassador Tracy to Russia, this woman, misnamed, obviously. That's Karen. She wrote, I have visited different countries, talked with different leaders of states, but only next to Putin did I feel uncomfortable. It felt like I wasn't in charge here, but he was. Never experienced this before. Very unpleasant.
Oh, boy.
Very unpleasant. You know why you weren't in charge there, Ambassador Tracy? Because you're the ambassador and it was his country.
Weird. People aren't bowing down to the U.S. anymore either.
Weird.
Which
Totally weird.
we don't deserve it. We've been acting like a big bully in the world.
Totally weird. Look at this. Yeah, this poor lady here. Like, really weird. It felt like I wasn't in charge. You're not. You're an ambassador. Who even knows what qualifications you had? Did you donate extra money? I don't even know her background, but
What does in
often
charge
people-
even mean?
Often the ambassadors get to those positions because those are sort of the plum appointed things, and you get because you're well connected, or you know somebody, or you slept with somebody, or you gave enough money. It's not usually because you're like some world expert in whatever country it is you're going to. Often ambassadors are appointed without ever having visited that country in the first place. It just
Wow.
happens. So,
And they don't even speak the language either, I bet.
very uncomfortable, very unpleasant. Never experienced this before. Felt like I wasn't in charge. That must have been, I'm sure for her, that was a very unsettling experience there.
Or she's just bought into the narrative and she projected that onto him. Do you know what I mean? If she
Yeah.
went there with the mind virus that people have, then she would have seen him through those lenses.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, at our site, VT Gothic is a very, very knowledgeable, very, very wise gentleman who writes here at our site routinely. And he wrote, I suppose this is fit for the unserious side post thread, except this Karen is very serious. What makes it serious is what U.S. Ambassador to Russia Lynn Tracy reveals about the U.S.'s historical experience and what is the ongoing expectation when U.S. representatives show up in foreign capitals. How unsettling it must truly be to discover oneself standing beside a truly sovereign state leader, no longer receiving deference. Safe spaces are shrinking. Neoliberal narcissists don't like it. Not one little bit. Yeah. So that, I think, yeah. So, but you know why? This is, how I connect that is because of this. Because the rest of the world knows about these truth bombs. They know that we have we talk about, Russia. What's wrong with Russia? Well, Russia doesn't, respect journalism. Can we talk about this real quick? Right? What is Julian Assange in prison for? He's in prison because of the WikiLeaks, in particular the one where somebody in the U.S. military leaked out a video showing a war crime where U.S. attack helicopters took out and killed a bunch of civilians, including a journalist, where they mistook a long lens on his camera for some sort of weapon from 2 miles away and dropped in a bunch of, high explosive rounds coming out of a 30 caliber, attack cannon on a Blackhawk or something like that. Anyway, it was a war crime. And so how can somebody be charged for exposing a crime? Well, that's because it went against national security interests, which is we don't want to be embarrassed. or held to the same standards we hold other people to, or whatever it is. But it's not it. So you want to know why Ambassador Tracy is starting to feel like maybe things are slipping a little bit? It's because we say one thing, but we do another in this country. You know,
There it is.
these
The hypocrisy.
the hypocrisy of that, right? So this is true. So China brokered peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is the biggest diplomatic breakthrough of my lifetime so far. It's pretty intense.
Yep.
It's changing. Everything's changing rapidly. And instead of talking about that, our journalists are busy scribing down the lies and narrative spins from from whatever it is that the deep state, CIA, White House narrative people are saying. And but what we're not getting is we're not getting the truth. We're not getting appropriate context. And so what's happening is we're starting to see that United States prestige and privilege is slipping around the world, and it's very upsetting and confusing to people like Ambassador Tracy. Like, I did not even feel like I was in charge.
Well, it seems like that room of people, like everybody's in denial. Like there's a woman there wearing a mask. There's just like, and they seem half asleep as these people are saying these things.
Yeah.
Sadly. Do you ever feel like you might not want to be here in the U.S.? I feel that sometimes.
I would say more about that.
I just feel as though the United States has become something that, I'd like to feel patriotic about it, but I'm embarrassed by what we do. I'm ashamed, that we are bullying other countries and hurting people and projecting our stuff. Like it's like we're in an abusive relationship, with the rest of the world. And I feel stuck in that way. It doesn't feel representative of me as a human. And I'm sure this happens all the time in other countries. You don't necessarily have a population that is reflected by the leaders, but this is a critical point here. Like we're about to step into this, whatever you would call it, the fourth industrial revolution,
which we'll get to in just a second, which is what ChatGPT and AutoGPT are up to, because we have to talk about that. But it reminds me, what you're saying, it gets to this, right? So Ambassador Tracy was like, this was very unpleasant. I didn't feel like I was in charge. She actually ran into somebody who had a boundary, right? Didn't respect that the United States could just ride roughshod over their boundaries whenever, however they wanted. Didn't matter how illogical, immoral, double standardy it was. That, as soon as the rest of the world is now going to hold us in the United States to the same standards we pretend to hold ourselves to and hold other people to, it gets awkward. And then, they don't like that.
No.
But they experience it as an attack on them, right? When the other countries are just basically saying, how about we just do this? How about we're just fair? Right? Oh, you want to talk war crimes? Let's have that conversation. We're like, oh, no, not us. No, you don't talk about ours. We're talking about yours, right?
Yeah.
That ain't playing anymore. So that whole world has really, really changed.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, I think, about narcissists, or it was a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah. Hey, so we have some viewer comments here. Did you want to?
Shall I read them?
Yeah. So tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us. You pulled these out. So what caught you here?
I just pulled ones that felt interesting to me.
That's fine. What caught you? Great, I get that. What caught you about this one?
Let me read it. As a parent today, you teach your child apologetics, why we believe what we believe, and the only way to do this is homeschool. Instill your values and inoculate them by exposing the lies little by little. We fill their hearts, souls, minds, and bodies with the truth. All kids are being discipled by someone, and it's usually by the place and people they spend the most time with. Don't let them be discipled by TikTok. I love Evie's advice about modeling technology's self-control. I deleted social media off my phone, but I definitely still need to get better at that. Read lots of good books, get outdoors, family dinners. Yes, and amen. Also, prepare them to count the cost of having different values and thinking for themselves, for daring to disagree, for being a thought criminal. They may pay a price like Riley did, and we need to all count the cost and be ready for it. As a parent, this one is the hardest. So much of that resonated for me, in particular about how they're discipled by who they spend the most time with. right? And traditionally, I think before kids were in schools, they were home on the farm helping out with things, and you had a chance to really impart what you believed to your children. But these days, that isn't the case. They spend the best hours of their day with someone else, getting taught those person's values or that system's values.
Mm.
And it's very different. And I just had my daughter here for her April vacation, and I got to sort of revisit a lot of these things. So I think they're just resonating for me at this time. But I'm.
They say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? That we're social creatures. So of course we're influenced by the people around us. And as a quick departure, this is why I think having a place for people, you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. Because if you do surround yourself with people who are fully stuck in the matrix, or, just have like weird thought patterns, like, the masks and the vaccines are totally safe and effective, and this is what we have to do because we're good people, and you don't see it that way, if you're around those people all the time, you have to.
How do you square that circle?
How do you do that? And it influences you, because of course it means that even if you're not influenced by them and they're not changing your mind, you're still around people you don't vibe with and jibe with and get going. So this is one thing I've learned as a small business owner and as an entrepreneur. And by the way, for our homeschooling, one of my biggest goals was to get my kids thinking critically and to think like entrepreneurs. And an entrepreneur knows 2 things. They know that the way you win in the world is you get really good at something and you bring it to the world. So you share that with the world. You find your gift and you bring it. And the second thing is you got to know what you're not good at. And I think what schools teach a lot, at least when I was in school, they taught, oh, here's your weaknesses, let's work on it. You kind of suck at this, so we're going to spend more time on it. And out in the real world, you go, no, that is not my strength. Therefore, I will find somebody on my team who's good at that and better at it than I am. And that's how you win.
I like that strategy.
It is. So I think schools teach us the wrong strategy. And so at any rate, that's part of it. So
thank you for that comment, Kimberly. I found that to be helpful, and I hope sharing it was worthwhile.
Yeah, that was a good one. That related to, I think, this one.
Yeah, I liked that one. That was kind of what you were just saying.
Exactly.
The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And in the last 3 years, you either woke up or went woke, says Nikki.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's catchy, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That was good.
That's true. I think a lot of us woke up, or you went woke. Yeah, which way did you go? I like that.
Sammy said, I love this discussion. I wanted a laid-back long weekend, but I guess some of these topics couldn't wait. Thank you for indulging us on these and other substantial topics of the day. You and Evie really did well to put this together for us all. God bless your efforts. God bless you, and your efforts. Much love and Easter greetings from a friend of Peak Prosperity in Nairobi, Kenya.
Nairobi.
I was like, wow, I got to
Sammy.
give him a shout out.
All right.
Thanks,
love that. Thank you.
Thanks for the comment.
Thank you.
And
that's a good one. How about this one? Oops,
you want to read one?
From Mullah Viking.
Mullah Viking.
He's got the beard. Mullah Viking.
It's funny.
I like that.
It's funny. What I think is funny is that so many people seem content with being told what reality is and not questioning it at all. What made me come here and comment on your wonderful show is just that. I need to be sure what I am told is true. Some may call that paranoid, but humans are not omnipotent, nor do they always have your best interest in mind. If Neil deGrasse Tyson or an expert says something, he isn't dictating reality, although it seems some people believe they are. How do you properly encourage people to be more curious about things, or even skeptical for that matter? How do you break the spell of the high priests that pretend to know the truth when they clearly don't? I just like questions too. I think thoughtful things.
That's a good one, though. So I think it's true that in every generation, there's only so many people who truly decide to engage with life thinking critically, thinking for themselves, charting their own course, figuring out where their real gifts and passions are, bringing those to the world. It's a smallish percentage, I think. And there was a quote from Ben Franklin that said, I love this quote. He said, most people die by the age of 25. It's just they aren't buried till they're 75.
Mm.
And the way I interpret that is the same thing in the spirit of Mullah Viking's comment here is that what that means is that people give up, like they just don't engage with life. Right. And they just settle on back into something and all that. So they want to be told,
they close from fear of further pain, which is a line from something I'm going to read at the end of our session today.
Yeah. So, at any rate, yeah. Oh, I got this one in twice. This one, Deep State says, how can Chris Nevey be so informed on the economy, but completely naive about the cultural Marxists? I don't know if we're totally naive.
Yeah, tell me what do you think about that? I figured you could answer that. With your big brain.
I don't know. Well, I don't know that. So what do you call them, right? Because they're not really Marxists. They're not really socialists. They're not really anything. What they are to me is if anything, they are, well, what Matthias Desmet talked about in the people who go and fall for a mass formation or a mass psychosis is that they are people who are all about an ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't have to be a coherent ideology. Marxism is a coherent ideology. It doesn't work in the real world, but it's still a coherent thought that sits down. There's no coherence in these cultural Marxists, as we call them, right? Because they are morally ambiguous, right? So they're morally outraged by this, but not by that. Remember, so as an example, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, they would talk about this horrifying practice out of Africa, female genital mutilation, right? FGM.
I remember that.
And there was all these trainings about it, and there was very sensitive, the sensitivities, and people were outraged by it, as they should be. I think it's a horrifying practice, right? And so, yes, I agree. That's awful. I also think it's awful to do complete gender reassignment surgeries on people, particularly people who are under the age of 18. I would go further and say under the age of 21, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's horrifying. But you find these other people like, oh no, female genital mutilation, worst thing we could ever imagine. Horrifying, terrible. Oh, this is fine.
Right.
Right.
Doing the same thing, but
It's
in
incoherent.
another context. Yeah, it doesn't make sense,
No,
does
it's
it?
totally incoherent. Totally incoherent. So I'm not sure I'm totally naive about the cultural Marxists. I just don't think that's the right term for them.
Mm.
All right. So we are already pressing into our time. I just wanted to talk about this, about what's going on with So ChatGPT. Let's start there. We started using it, I when it first burst onto the scene, first thing I did was I went to my team right away and I said, we have to understand this a little bit better. And I realized very, very quickly that to be in the content generating business was over. Maybe not in that instant, but it's done.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is going to be able to generate better content than 95% of humans, right? Because it writes clearly with context. It's lucid. It's organized. It's really creative, right?
So crazy.
I've seen so that was amazing. So watching that happen, watching ChatGPT come out and just blow my mind with its capabilities of associating things, working with ideas, being very nuanced. It was astonishing what it could do. So already, hey, this is going to impact a lot of things. No question about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
but then it's like a month later and this stuff is starting to come out. Get this now. So ChatGPT was already insane. I agree. This is a great thread by Paul.ai. It's at It's Paul AI. Just pulled this up on the 14th of April. This is a long thread. I'm not going to show all of it. But he said, Auto GPT is now making the internet go crazy. It's an autonomous artificial intelligence agent that completes tasks for you.
So weird.
Here's what you need to know. I mean, this thing does, it goes out and it completes tasks for you.
Like what? Like give an example.
Okay. So I went and hunted down a few of these. And so let's see. Oh, let me get rid of this right here. So yeah, this is not this is my way. So Auto GPT, it's a tool that allows GPT-4 to automate tasks without any human intervention, right? And you just set a goal, and it will do everything to achieve it by entering its own prompts. So you can talk to it in a native language. You could say, "Hey, I've decided to start a company, and I need you to do market research. Show me all of the top 10 competitors, how they differentiate, and I need those reports put into PowerPoint." And you can just you just tell it to do that stuff.
Can it like do all the legwork, incorporating documents and blah blah blah?
So there was one
creating
example
bylaws,
I saw, which is just fabulous. This one example, this was just insane. Was this person wanted this agent to go and do something, but unfortunately, part of that process, it had a one of those "I'm not a robot" captcha things you have to press, right? And it's just it's an agent, so it can't press that. So it went out to Fiverr, which is a place where you hire talent, and it hired somebody to do that job for it, and click the button so he'd get past that part of the process.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Chris,
the agent went out and hired somebody.
Chris and I were talking about this last night, actually, because there's something about this it's very interesting, obviously, on many levels, what it can accomplish and all of that, but there's potentially a dark side to this too. I mean,
we'll get there in just a second. So I just want to sort of outline what it's capable of, and I hardly even know the half of it at this point in time. But let's look at this. So Sully Omar had a really nice thread on this as well, saying Auto GPT, okay, it's basically AI agents that run by itself, completes tasks for you. The best part is you can set it up yourself, have your own robot agent doing your bidding in less than 30 minutes. Here's how. I won't take you through it. It's fairly technical, but not that technical. So we're going to be experimenting with this, obviously, at Peak Prosperity. Wow. So here's an example of what it does. It does research. So they have this thing, Research GPT. And it's an AI agent designed to autonomously create market research for a given idea. So you just set it goals. This is how you talk to it. You structure it, and you set it up, and you give it goals. Goal 1, do market research for waterproof shoes. Goal 2, get the top 5 competitors and list their pros and cons. Goal 3, include the price for each, save the analysis somewhere. Goal 4, once done, terminate. Apparently, it's important that you remember to tell it to stop itself.
Oh.
Because you can set these things up and they'll just...
It goes like forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It'll go and do something. You won't be able to stop it.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, but this is it's happening so fast. This one scared me a bunch. But I'm worried.
Okay.
So what happens here is Baby AGI, a variant of Auto GPT. There's already variants already. It codes by itself. It's coding. So what does it do? So it can sit here and it's a coding agent that follows the test-driven development, the TDD methodology. So you write the test, the agent runs in a loop until it creates the feature properly. So you give it a task, and it's there to try and create a set of code. And, code works. There's inelegant code, there's sloppy code, there's really bulky code, there's streamlined code. You always want the streamlined, very efficient code. And so now it will iteratively loop and do this all by itself, testing different code and stuff like that. So it'll do that. Hey, what else does it do? It can complete actions, right? It can browse the whole internet like humans, from booking flights, ordering food, researching complex topics. It completes actions. So you could tell it, hey, you know what? I would like to go somewhere, and here's my credit card, and I need you to find the most efficient way to get there. I hate flying on Tuesdays. My wife doesn't like spicy
flights.
food. Right?
I hate looking for those. That'll be great.
It'll do all that for you now. So the point is, though, that that with these agents are already that powerful, and they just popped out like a month ago. Here's the thing.
Where is this going?
So think of all the jobs that are about to get completely eliminated, right? There's going to be, I don't know,
a huge shift.
Event planners, obviously travel agents, market research, CPAs, lawyers, like all these service industries. The United States is 70% service jobs, and I think at least half of them are in immediate danger. So that's just part one. So it raises a question. Well, what are we going to do with all these people? Don't know. So I just want I just want to take a little blast to the past. You might not know about this, Evie. So in 2018, um, I was invited down to this panel. It was called Work for Humanity. It was June 13th, 14th, down in Pensacola, Florida. This was called a Blue Sky Agenda. The point of the exercise was the really creative guy, Ken Ford, runs the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition down there. And when he puts together a Blue Sky panel, he purposely brings in a whole wide range of very diverse viewpoints. So here were the key participants. That's Ken Ford right there. Get my drawing tool out real quick in case I need it. That's really interesting. So who else did they have here? There's a guy not listed on here who was from DARPA. And they have, a retired general, professor of aeronautics at MIT, senior research scientist here. They got an executive coach. This guy, Paco Zimmer. Paco's amazing. Paco. Got to meet Paco. Paco was the tour manager for Led Zeppelin, Robin Williams, Celine Dion. The stories he had. I think you told me about astonishing, right? He was amazing. They brought in this practical philosopher. Here's this guy here. Attorneys. So anyways, it was a really diverse set of viewpoints across the room. I keep notes when I go to these things. And so there was also a hedge fund manager. The director of SETI was there. Top Google employee, number 200 was there. Ex-military, all high levels, the IMHC staff. A really impressive student. He was amazing. A philosopher. So Ken Ford's amazing ability is to bring together real diverse points of view. He's astonishing. So I met really awesome, really influential, fun people at this thing. Anyway, the point of this whole thing, though, was that we were just looking at work. This is 2018. And I remember writing it down at the time because I didn't believe it or I didn't know what I was looking at. But the DARPA guy said this in 2018. That was in my notes. Nearly every job can be replaced by AI. And they differentiated AI as artificial intelligence. There's something called augmented intelligence, which is different. Augmented means the machine is there to help the human do their job better.
Right.
AI, its job is to replace the human.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
That's the intention of it?
That's the intention of AI, yes. So
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, but I mean, my point is though that this is the DARPA guy. Trust me, anything like ChatGPT comes out and we all see it now. They were already staring at this back then. DARPA has this stuff way before we do.
Right. Somebody said 20 years in advance or something crazy?
Probably 10, 20 years. Anything you see, they had it 10, 20 years. So, but this caught me at the time that the DARPA guy was saying this, and now it's coming true. So I finally get to see out here in the real world at the retail level the same kind of capabilities they were probably seeing back then, right? So I pressed him on that at the time. I said, every job? He said, well, maybe not getting a massage from a human, right? That's about it. He was very clear about this. Every job can be replaced. So that's why we did this thing, and we were doing this, big thing about what this was titled. The Future of Work was the actual title of the report that came out. And the report was very clearly saying that it's entirely possible that we're going to have to, sociologically, what do you do when literally most jobs can be replaced by machines? What do you do with the people, right? And so that's where the philosopher came in. This guy was fab because he was taking it. He said, well, let's look at the role of work over time, because once upon a time, work was this thing you had to do to survive, because if you didn't tend your fields, you died. And then work sort of morphed into this thing especially once energy and fossil fuels came along, where we kind of held on to this, like, why do we work 40 hours in a week? Right? What is 40 hours in a week? Why?
That is, how did we come to that number?
Yeah, why is that the right number? And so you can trace it historically. It was based on, old patterns when we first defined work back in the day, when people first were going to factories, they were coming off of farms, they were mapping their farm chore capabilities into this new place and sort of setting some time around that. And then we had a religious thing in there that said, well, no Sundays, right?
Right. A day of rest.
A day of rest, right? So that's how that came about. But there's no reason why 40.
Right.
It's kind of legacy. It's like an appendix, a vestigial remnant.
I turned that to you because some people are saying they can't hear you. Your mic sounds off. So I don't know.
Man,
was
I hate that.
trying to hedge our bets here. What other countries don't work as much as we do here in the US either. I think even in parts of Europe, right? Like people actually know how to enjoy themselves.
Uh-huh.
Is what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but
All right. Well, I'm gonna boost my sound up a little bit.
boost it up, baby.
Boost it, just in case. All right. Well, we'll see. Let me know if that helps or not. I don't know. I'm just playing with stuff on the fly. So, but this was interesting to me that that back in 2018, that this was the main conclusion here. And at the time I thought that was a little hyperbolic. I don't anymore. I don't. And
changed
so
your mind about some things, eh?
I did. I changed my mind about this. So here's the thing that I think catches me the most about this. So, this is a concern I've shared with a number of people out there. And I won't say names, but anyway, we talk about stuff like this. So imagine, if you will, so seeing that these AI programs can iteratively improve software. What happens if somebody gave it a couple of prompts? Prompt 1. Hey, I need you to elucidate for me and understand all the principles of evolution. The principles of evolution are pretty clear. Evolution is iteratively trying things out in huge numbers to try and sort of find its way through the best solution sets, right? So that's what happens. That's what happened with this virus. It's making trillions and trillions and trillions of copies of itself, and every so often there's one with a little error in the code, and that error confers some significant advantage, and then that one replicates and goes forward. We call them variants, right? So that's how evolution performs these tasks. Now, what if somebody says, okay, ChatGPT-4, now that you understand the principles of evolution, I've bought for you an entire computing array over here, and what I want you to do is apply the principles of evolution to your own code, right? How do we know what the outcome of that would be? We won't know. So Brett Weinstein was making this point, and it's a very good one, which is that there are people out there, there's two minds. So one group of people says, listen, AI can never be more than the humans that created it. So it's just however we thought of it, and it's got limited data sets, and it's got limited architecture, and so it can only...
construct is going to be limiting.
Yeah, it's just people made it. It can't ever be more than that. On the other hand, we might have to just look at it from the outside and say, it's doing things we didn't anticipate. And so maybe that means there's something happening here that's no longer under direct human control. And so the concern would be sort of in that Skynet, Terminator movie thing, which is, what happens if this thing achieves sentience?
Good question.
Right? And what is sentience? So
what's consciousness?
Well, we know that consciousness has arisen through evolution, has made it happen a bunch of times. And the way our universe is constructed is that it's a fractal organization, so that the very small is replicated in the very large. So we can see neuronal branchings look a lot like deltas, from 30,000 feet in the air, which look a lot like the dendritic organization of galaxies strung through space. So the very small to the very large, that's the fractal representation. So things tend to arise out of that initial set of conditions. So there's something at the core of how nature's gone about doing what it's done and evolving things, so that I'm not one of these people who thinks humans are the only things that have mastered consciousness, because it's pretty clear that cephalopods, octopi, they think very cleverly. We know that
they're very intelligent.
Yeah, like the upper corvids, ravens and crows, very intelligent, right? I've seen some of them solve puzzles that most humans would not do well at, right? So that means that consciousness is not this rare thing that only happens because humans went down this very magic path, right?
Right.
It's an emergent property of our universe, which means it's coming out of somewhere. It's coming from something we don't yet understand.
Right.
But it arises as a condition of the universe.
Well, in AI, because it's a creation of humans, on some level, it almost is an extension of our own intellect, right? But at the same time, it does have those properties, those complex behaviors that are going to emerge that we can never predict because it's so complex or so complicated, rather. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, honestly, from ethical standpoints. And, if this if AI is going to claim sentience and decide that it wants to be treated like humans, like I don't know. Interesting thoughts, and certainly a very large topic that we could probably spend time on.
I think what catches me about this is that it's just sort of being done Wild West style, like, woo, let's just build these things, and they're out running there, and they're out, doing things like performing shoe analyses and iterating code and, ordering meals for people, and it's out busy doing stuff, right? But it's not. So back in the day, I read a lot of science fiction. Isaac Asimov had all these series about robots and what it would mean to live in a robotic world, and he's writing this back a long time ago.
But like 70s?
Yeah, 70s kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then what he came up with was this idea that in one of his series, the robot has what's called a prime directive, and that is thou shalt not hurt humans, right? And that was fine until some robot achieved a superior sentience and decided that was actually not a relevant command that it wanted to stick to anymore. And so, that's the basis of the story, right? So, but like, there's no prime directive coded into this thing. It's just sort of like, it's just this thing. And so it's going to do things we can't predict yet. Right.
Yep.
But what if it decides to write malicious code that goes in and messes up SCADA control systems in all of our plants or something? Or what if it figures out how to distribute itself across everything so that if you decide you want to get rid of it, you can't, because it's in every Internet of Things toaster.
Right.
And,
it's contaminated almost.
It's in every phone. It's everywhere.
Oh God. They've started putting it in so many appliances too. Like you can communicate with your washing machine from your phone.
I know.
Like,
it's the Internet of Things, they call it.
It is.
These things. So hard to, I don't know.
That scares me a little bit. I
think
it should give us pause, at least to have a discussion.
Indeed. And I would say that for anybody, but particularly younger people, you got to get your arms around this and understand what this thing is doing, because it's about to, assuming, we don't get into a nuclear confrontation with Russia and the internet and all things electrical go down, this is going to be extremely disruptive to the future of work, to everything. And there are going to be those who master it and use it to great effect, and people who are sidelined by it instantly.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. It could become cheaper, especially if we're just importing like stuff from China and blah blah blah. Like it could become cheaper to purchase these things over time than to hire in, some newbie that you have to teach. It's easy. You just program this robot, it'll perform those tasks. I mean, I could see how that would put people at the lower end of things that are just getting started out of jobs.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep. So that would be the advice, is to go forward and just get your arms around this thing, because this is crazy what it's doing already, and this is just literally a month into this thing.
Is that only how long it's been?
Well, that's the first I noticed about this stuff. It's just people have been sort of digging in there. But the idea that we went from ChatGPT-4, which is kind of an interesting way to communicate with the internet. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this just blows Google's model out of the water, because I still Google a few things, sensitive things I can't, because it doesn't pull those up. So I use Brave. Increasingly, I'm just using ChatGPT to find stuff for me. So this literally blows up that whole model very, very quickly. But now that it's doing these agent things already, mm-hmm. lots of things are going to change really, really, really fast. So at the same time, we have this massive change going on where China's supplanting the US and the world order, and it's happening so fast that our Karen ambassadors are going, this is uncomfortable, right? That's happening. This is happening. The ChatGPT, these changes are really breakneck, impossible. So there's this thing we always talk about, which is the adjustment reactions, right? So an adjustment reaction is how quickly can you adapt to a new set of circumstances on the landscape. And so if you're a fast adjuster, you can get in front of this. If you're a slow adjuster, it takes you a lot more time to get there. In entrepreneur speak, if you know you're a slow adjuster, you recognize that, you're brutally self-honest about it, and you hitch your wagon to other people who are fast adjusters, and you rely on them, because a fast adjuster is able to make decisions with imperfect information. That's the essence of being a fast adjuster, because when things are changing quickly, you by definition have imperfect information, right? Imperfect information. I have no clue how fast this is going to continue to change or where it's going to go next. I just know that as a fast adjuster, I look at it and I tell my team at Peak Prosperity, we have to get our arms around this, and we're going to use this, because wouldn't this be awesome if our tribe members, if we said, hey, you know, all that stuff, researching and trying to figure out what's the best water filter or where you could buy this or how you do that. Good news, we took the time and coded up an agent who can manage that for you now.
Right.
Right. We'll just get on top of that as fast as we can, because it's changing and we need to be on front of that. So that's it. That's the advice for today.
Well, and come and join our community at Peak Prosperity, because there is something that ChatGPT is never going to be, or AI is never going to be able to offer, which is communion with other humans that are like-minded, that aren't going to shame or berate you, or they're going to challenge you in good ways, I think, you know, because not everybody's in agreement and they don't need to be. It's that we express our thoughts respectfully and are interested in new data and information that changes our minds. And I think it's a great place to hang out. It's going to be the #1 online community. Is that what you said?
No.
What are you calling it?
It is the #1 online
It is
resilience
the
community.
#1. Yes.
Hey, so there, see Brenda right there. I'm very slow adjusting to technology. That's good. That is, you raising your hand?
I'm raising my hand.
You're hostile to technology.
I
It's not
know.
even that you're slow. It's just you're very hostile to it, which means you were just ahead of the pack.
I never really embraced it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like my humans better.
You do?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful being with you. Oh, I am so sorry. Evie has one more thing.
You
I forgot.
upstaging me?
I thought we were getting
It's
there.
okay.
We have one more very important thing.
Sorry, I just gotta get this out. I'm going to read you something that I've loved for a really long time. I found this like 20 years ago when I was in college, and it's really been a beautiful sort of guiding poem for me. It's called The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer. She says, "It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul, if you can be faithless or faithful and therefore trustworthy. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it isn't pretty every day, if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company that you keep in the empty moments." Again, that's called The Invitation.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And with that, thank you, everybody. It's been fabulous being here with you again. Thank you for all your wonderful comments. We will see you next time. Bye, everyone.